record stuff. I'll have to start doing that at work.
Yeah.
All right. So now it should
Make your
record
own
both
little
of
like
them.
repository of videos. So when Jeff asks you a question,
Right.
yeah, this will get confusing. We have two Joshes. You got two Jeffs.
Oh yeah.
Well, we'll just make it more fun that way. All right. So where did you guys want to start? I mean, we did the Pry Tunnel stuff already, and I'm just shutting down all my other tabs here.
Yeah, I guess Josh's question is mostly how we would do a point-to-point VPN, or site-to-site VPN,
So
persistent.
the biggest thing, if we're going to be using Pry Tunnel, I looked it up just via their documentation, and what it wants is it does all the backend communication via MongoDB. So when we set up your server there, it was just everything was like right here, where you've got all of your server, your Pry Tunnel server is all in one location. When you switch over to doing multiple servers, like it's showing here with site to site,
Oh, okay.
you need either like this is obviously a pretty big example. They're using AWS for everything, but you would have a publicly available MongoDB because that's what it uses to pass the data back and forth. And then the IPsec links are in between the individual sites, wherever they are.
Okay.
But I mean, it would just be something like spinning up a VPS on, I use DigitalOcean, but wherever, and just having a secured database that's publicly addressable that you could find.
Okay. So we'd use like DigitalOcean or something like that.
Right.
Okay.
I use DigitalOcean for my stuff because I mean, I use a $5 droplet that just does, lots of small containers for me, and it's also just an endpoint in case I need a quick VPN somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I've heard of guys using those as Tor exit nodes. Just those little $5 a month, 100 megabyte per second connections.
Yeah, I mean, digital. I mean, you don't. They definitely have a good price range for what you get. I mean, 1 terabyte transfer, 20 gig SSD, just enough memory and CPU to make it worthwhile, and then you can just bump up whatever you need. If you want more CPU, they got different things for that. Or if you had some kind of memory intensive thing, and even just adding block storage, you can go however big you want. If you want 16
Wow,
terabytes,
okay.
you can have it. It's just that kind of stuff.
Oh shit.
So, I mean, I think it's pretty cool. And that's what I use it for my stuff. I don't even know if I'm logged in. Oh, yeah, two-factor. One moment. Because I've spun up stuff on there pretty quickly, just because you can drop it in really quick.
How does DigitalOcean compare to like KeyWeb?
I am not familiar with KeyWeb. Is that...
I know I was
Send me a link to it.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. I think they offer $5 and you actually get a 100 gigabyte SSD.
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second. I think it's Dutch, but
Yeah, it just depends. I mean, I got a $100 credit with these guys when I signed up because of a student discount. So it was like the first year and a half I've used them was free.
here it is. Yeah, there it is. For
it's
€5
Germany.
a month, 16 gigs RAM, 1 terabyte. It's not a solid state; it's a SATA hard drive.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, usually if you get a SSD, it's going to be a lot smaller. Whereas if you get a spinner, it's going to be quite a bit different. But I mean, either way, like I said, if you're just doing VPN endpoint type stuff, if you're not doing a whole bunch of downloading files to the server, it's not going to be an issue.
Okay.
Because that's just a link that we're jumping from there to other sites. It's not storing anything local. It's just encrypting it and sending it along the chain.
Don't need anything special. I see.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, 590 is still, what is that?
It's like
Something like that. It's $6-7 right now. So I mean,
yeah.
if you want more, if you wanted to do something like a download box or whatever, like a seed box, you could definitely do something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
But this for me is super
choice.
low traffic because like my smoke ping is on here and a couple of other things, and that's about it. So I figured if you can get it for free, why not? So
Yeah, I wonder if I can get a student credit.
GitHub student. I'll send you the link to make sure.
Oh, I think I already signed up for this.
Yeah, and DigitalOcean's on there. GitHub is on there.
Mother. Google.
Microsoft Imagine's on there. Namecheap.
Holy shit! I might already have access to Microsoft Imagine. I didn't think I got it till I got residency, but
As long as you're a student, you'll get all of the Microsoft stuff. And then like Namecheap gives you like that SSL stuff, cheap domain stuff, that kind of thing. So I mean, it's a good way to get started, especially play around with it, just depending on what you want to do with it. But
logging my student email.
Right.
I got it here. I know I signed up for that. I think GitHub.
I mean, eligibility 13 plus. So
yeah.
It works out. It's a pretty decent. I'm sorry, I was talking over somebody.
Student Developer Pack, unlimited free private repositories.
Yep. As long as you're a student. And
Yeah.
I've never even gotten a verification from GitHub specifically, so I think it's at least 4 years from the time you sign up for it.
Yeah, it says 2 years. Fuck yeah. Yes, I'm a student.
Okay, looks like DigitalOcean dropped their credit, but it's still $50, so that's 10 months right off the bat if you just use a $5 droplet.
Why are you logged into this, Jeff?
To GitHub?
Oh, that's right. We were messing with getting GitUp yesterday.
Oh, yeah. No, it might be easier just to use something else for configuration management. I just know how to manage code.
Well, honestly, I mean, it depends on what you're comfortable with. I've been goofing around with both command line stuff and with GUI clients. I mean, it just depends on what I'm on. On my computer here, I have all of my Docker stuff using Atlassian. What's it called? Source tree? Yeah, source tree to just push back and forth. And then I have Atom as my text editor, and that actually has Git stuff enabled on it as well. So I mean,
can you actually hook Git into Docker and then just make that work together instead of hooking it up to each individual server?
Yeah, so like on my server here, I can just go to my Fig and Git pull, and it sits there and boop, there's all my stuff that just changed, including Spread the Bloods and Jet.
So then on Docker, you'd have all your configurations all in one repository, so you wouldn't have to like create a separate repository for each server and then mess around with all that.
Right. So like I have my Docker config stuff, like each individual Docker's stuff in its own folder, and then I use Docker Compose. So under mine, like I've got just a Docker Compose set up there, and so I actually open it up in Atom because it's easier to read and adjust. But all of my services, even disabled ones, just live in one file. So say I want to take out PlexPy. Actually, I'll turn off DuckDNS just as an example. There we go. I would say save it. All right. It kicks over here and says, you've made a change. Yes, I want to change. Disabled DuckDNS, right? Commit, and I can go right back. Push the change. Give it a second to push. There's the change. And all I got to do, and I can do it either way. I can do it from command line on my server, which is what this is logged into, or on my desktop, and still keep everything synced up that way.
Oh, nice.
You know, I even have I have an alias actually on here for Docker Compose edit, which just goes straight into that same file and will do everything for me.
And then you just have your Docker set as your origin on your source tree.
Right. I just have it just a folder. It's all of the config stuff is in one folder for me. So it's my network I use, since I'm FaultNet is for everything, and then whatever files I need from there. So I can have my bash files are set up in a different folder, that kind of stuff. So I mean, I've got all kinds of stuff popped in there. Because I mean,
yeah, I'm just starting to learn about DevOps and stuff like that for programming, and it's kind of the other side of things I'm not quite as familiar with. So I'll have to familiarize myself with Docker, because everywhere I hear DevOps, people are like Docker, 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 Docker.
Well, and that's what I was here. I can pull. I use a ton of Docker services. I don't know how familiar you are with it, but like half the stuff I use is all in Docker. And I actually spun up Portainer prior to this to show you the difference between doing it by hand versus using a GUI, since you're using Unraid at the moment. But I mean, these are all the local stuff on my local server that I just updated. And I mean, the nice thing about this is like this is called Glances. It's similar to Top, but it shows, you know, CPU usage, memory usage, all that stuff as you go, which is pretty
super cool.
Yeah, versus like Portainer is the other version of that, and so you can have all your information there. This is more of a Docker. If you weren't comfortable using anything with the command line, you know, you can get all that same information. But it's a little bit neater to have it just in a web UI if you're not familiar with it. And like I said, I have my entire setup scripted. So using Docker Compose, I can like DC run down. I'll pull down all the surfaces I have in that Docker Compose. Give it a second. Containers are done, containers are removed, and the network's removed, and pop, I just cleared off a whole bunch of resources.
Oh, wow.
And so the same thing, bringing it back up, DC run up, daemonize it, creating that private network for all these Dockers to go, and they'll all come right back up.
Wow.
So that's the difference between doing Docker as individual containers versus Compose, where everything is scripted one at a time, pop, 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 pop. So now you can see all these are getting started. By the way, this is still my old server. That's why it's super low.
Oh, okay.
This is a AMD E350 APU with 2 gigs of RAM that's doing this.
Oh, shit.
So the pass mark on is in the 700s. I haven't.
Hey, that would be a good pfSense box.
That's a great pfSense box. It only has one Ethernet interface, though.
Wow.
But I mean, so this is my old media center box, and while I was building this other box, this is what I've been using. But I mean, even with this, you can see that it's running through all my Docker stuff just fine. Honestly, the biggest thing that's chewing up stuff is the Sonar and then Unify. Sonar because it's pulling all the stuff from my library, and Unify because it's Java. But yeah, you can see the top usage is mono right now for that Sonar. But yeah, so that's a pretty slick setup, I think.
Yeah, it looks super quick to do everything.
And like I said, if I want to do changes, I can sit here and use my desktop, edit everything, push it up to the GitHub, pull it down on a remote host or wherever, you know, and get up and running really quick.
So when you push or pull it to your server, do you have to run something to like refresh all the services, or how does that work?
So like what I the way I have it set for this one, I'm about to change this, is that right now I just have a repos folder for all my GitHub stuff, and I can go straight into it and just say, okay, I want that Docker Compose, and then on my home, I have a faultnet folder with that same thing in there. So I would be pulling, you know, copy. Here, I'll go switch back. So copy, repos, config, faultnet, Docker to faultnet, Docker. Overwrite it, yep, and then DC run up -D. And so this is where I just have since I disabled DuckDNS, it's going to whine and say, oh, you have an orphan container. If you want to remove it, make sure you just add the remove orphans flag. So what I can do is I could have that scripted into that alias and have it just say, okay, double check when I do that when I do that pull, basically automatically copy over that file. I just didn't want to do that yet since I'm about to switch servers around. But it's like one extra step is just pull the file from where I have my repo stuff stored to the actual live config. And so you can see right there it pulled DuckDNS that we had disabled it, removed it, made sure everything else was up to date, and we're good. Which is awesome. Nice.
I'm probably more comfortable with the scripting than I actually am with the server administration stuff.
Yeah, I have a whole ton of different stuff kicked into my profile so that it's all, that's one of the things that's in my private repo there is my own bash profile stuff.
Nice.
And same thing with like hosts, for example. You can have all your host stuff set up in one place so that you could just be able to quickly add hosts, reload your profile, all that stuff's real quick for me. Poof.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. I even have there's a guy who set up a thing that's called, it's a cheat sheet for different stuff. I think it's like curl, I don't know. But I alias that, so if I forget how to use a command, say like nmap, cheat nmap, it gives me a quick cheat sheet for all the stuff for nmap instead of having to go, the man page for nmap and try and, okay, what's all this, what's all that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, that takes forever to figure out that stuff.
Yeah, so cheat and say less, for example. Oh, this is how you use less. To disable the refresh, blah, blah, blah.
What's that called again?
That's let me find it. That's a custom one. Function cheat. This guy, I'll put.
Oh, you just wrote that yourself.
Yeah, the guy's website is this cheat.sh, and then you drop in whatever you want to look up, and then I just put it into a script. I will also drop that into there. So now you can just copy that to your bash.
That is awesome.
I'll have to forward that to you.
Mm-hmm. What was the other thing? Oh, this one. How do you view your logs in Unraid? Does it give you a GUI that shows you what's going on with it, or?
Oh yeah, you want to see?
I can show you, the command line version of it is just like Docker logs and then whatever container name, right? So say it's like Sonar, right? It would show you all the stuff that's going on with Sonar. Well, when you start getting a whole bunch of different services, especially ones that interact the way this one is, Docker Compose lets you do the same thing, but color-coded by what service it's doing. So you can see, and this live updates, let's see. Let me pull up Plex and just have it. Actually, I'll pull up PlexPy. So it'll actually live update. Oh, look, this session has been started, and you can keep an eye on what's going on with all your services live. So as they interact or as things are failing or whatever, instead of having to check in on it, you can keep this just up and running in a separate window if you want. And you'll see all your services as each thing updates. They're all done now. But
show that off.
Yeah.
And use an old monitor mounted on the wall.
Exactly. That's one way to do it. So if I say DC run down, so you can see each individual one is color coded, telling you what it's going on with. Just kind of a neat way to do it and see a lot of different things happening at once rather than. That was wrong. So same thing, now we're going to see it all coming in live. Connection pool is full. There it goes. So here's all the stuff starting up now. The other nice thing with this too is that if you say you have image updates, you can just pull. It'll only pull the updates for any images you have specified in your config instead of doing it one by one. Oh, so there's an update for Unify, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So give that a second. Of course, it's deciding to be Monster because it's probably like a Java update or something. but you can have it just restart that one. It's smart enough to only restart that one service rather than the whole entire stack, which is really nice. Sorry, I got really slow internet.
Oh, I know thing. We got pretty slow internet here.
Yeah.
That's a U.S. problem. Thanks to GPie.
I was gonna say I switched from down in St. Pete, Tampa area to up here. I'm paying the same amount for a 20th of the speed down and up. So.
What's your speed?
15 down, 2 up.
Megabits or megabytes?
Megabits.
Oh, jeez.
Holy fuck! I get 120 megabits for $64.99. That's down 120 down and 20. What is it?
I was gonna say this is also the plans are also capped down here at 1 terabyte a month.
What?
Exactly.
You know, it pisses me off because you look at other countries, like even like they can get straight up fiber with 200 megabytes per second or higher,
right,
for less than what we pay here.
Mm-hmm.
You go to South Korea and there's like no limit. It's just as fast as you can go.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully that'll be the only update. That's kind of irritating. I thought I had everything updated before I joined up with you, but clearly they just pushed something. Because I did this last night to make sure. That or I should have just put this stack up on my new server host and shown you from there, because this would have been so fast.
What did you build out?
I've got dual E5520s with 28 gigs of RAM right now.
Okay. Is that board that had half the DIMMs die on?
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah, so I've got 2 8s and 3 4s in there, and all on one side, which is kind of funny.
That sucks.
All right, so updated. So say I'm going to make sure I want to have the newest software because Unify had some security flaw, right? I can do the same thing, make sure, run the same command that would bring up my stack, and it only has to recreate the one. Everything else is up to date.
Okay. Unraid does something similar.
Yeah. But from what I understand, Unraid is not nearly as real time in its feedback. It kind of waits until the command is finished before it gives you whatever happened. Was that right, or am I mistaken? Because I know somebody was talking to me about it, saying they had some issues with it because they couldn't figure out what was going on.
Let's go to Unraid real quick.
Yeah, I was going to say I'd love to see it.
So the logs are kind of all just dumped out in here, and it only color codes them based on what type.
I wonder if you could dump those logs into something like Elasticsearch.
I'm sure you could. They're all stored in the user share.
Hang on a second. I got something goofy going on here. How do I turn off my screen share?
You should be able to just hover over mine and enhance it. I'm not sure.
Because when I do it, I'm only seeing half the screen. 1 second. Oh, that's the camera. Don't want that.
I'll just go into Crusader real quick.
That's fine. I'll just watch from the window.
Is it not letting you enhance mine?
If I make it big, it splits the screen, which is kind of weird.
Oh, that's weird.
Because it assumes that we're both doing video at any given point, I guess.
I'm not sure where they keep logs for actual. It might actually be. I know they're dumped somewhere in here, and I can't remember where.
It's not there. That's all the Unraid stuff.
Yeah.
Try /var/docker. Var log. There you go.
Yeah, there it is, right in the middle.
Daemon. No. Yeah, I don't know. Since Unraid uses kind of its own setup for a lot of this stuff, it's not necessarily as easy to keep track of. I'm used to just doing everything by CLI, obviously, anyhow. But
Makes sense.
yeah, for me, for so long, it was just easier and faster to do it that way.
Yep, the trick is knowing everything to do.
And it doesn't look like they just. There might even be a log in Docker somewhere that knows where everything's at.
Yeah, when you run one of those commands, it's pulling the Docker daemon, but I just don't know.
No,
that's just
this is the one we
whole
were
system
looking at
log.
earlier. That's just the system logs.
That's fine though. I mean, it's just a different setup. Like I said, here, I'll start my screen set up again.
Here, I'll close mine.
Yeah, entire screen. Can you see? You can see mine again?
Yep.
All right. The Inception. But like you can get something like this, which is just straight up only Docker. It can keep track of what's running, does all that. It shows you, like, since I have all that running in a stack, that was one thing. You can see that it's all running. And then Glances is this guy. And Portainer, obviously, I kept outside of the stack as well, so that if my stack does something wrong, it's not going to take out my management stuff as well, which is kind of nice.
Does Portainer actually run on your server that has all the Docker?
Yeah. Like, it's actually, Portainer is running as a Docker right now.
Oh, okay.
So
I guess that's where I was kind of ignorant.
So you can run it by itself and like as a software, just as a normal install, right? But it pulls information from the daemon or the daemon, however you want to say it. I don't care. I say daemon. I've always said it that way. Anyhow, but it pulls that information from there, and that's how it keeps live. It keeps track of what's going on.
Nice.
For me, it's just easier since it can be, containerized. Just run it as a container, and then, no big deal. I just keep it outside of that compose stack, so all my faultnet stuff runs together, and then I don't have any problem with it.
Okay.
If that makes sense to you. So here, I'm gonna revert this change.
I'll probably have to install it and play around with it a little bit and probably make more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that other board I have, I think I want to use that as like a dedicated VM machine.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Oh, I can show you ESX if you want to see that as well.
Yeah, I actually had a question about that. I was looking a little bit into ESXi, and I think I was asking that. I accidentally asked you that last night before you went to bed about running pfSense on a VM within ESXi. I've seen some guys do that, and they basically lock the ESXi, the host machine, from pulling an IP address and assign those two LAN ports to the Docker running pfSense. How realistic is that of a setup, or would you more recommend a dedicated machine?
It depends on how you want to do it, because you're talking about like just straight up interface pass through.
Yeah.
And I know guys who do it. If you can afford it, I would do it separately. I mean, pfSense isn't going to take you a whole ton of stuff. It's not going to take, a whole ton of resources unless you have crazy VPN stuff running, like you're pushing out 500 megabit VPN stuff on like my little server, for example. That wouldn't keep up with it. But just about anything, a lot of guys are sitting there running it on like a little, like almost like whatever, like a NUC, Intel NUC.
Okay.
That kind of stuff. Even a low powered one is usually more than powerful enough for it. So here, let me start up ESX10. So I already have the server running. I started it up right when we started the call. And this is basically what it's like. The setup is it's running on the desktop, or it's running on the system right now by itself. basically it boots just like FreeNAS does to just a real bare DOS based console, and you do everything via either a web client or a Flash client. And so you have, this is just, again, this has barely been configured. I haven't done much besides start up your test server, for example, and then I'd installed a Windows client and then another Ubuntu client.
Okay.
But I mean, if I wanted to pass through a USB controller, I can sit there and say, okay, toggle pass through, and then I can bring it through to a VM, and it'll see it as native hardware. So like the IDE, so like there's that gigabit network connection. That's one of the two network slots, and I could sit there and pass through that to a VM and have that slot, or that port would basically be attached to the actual client VM. So that would be what your pfSense would doing. And like when you, let's see. So if you did that, you would have something like this, where, so your physical adapter would be attached to, like, pfSense would be in the middle, and then you would have a virtual network with all your machines attached on the other side of that.
Okay, I see.
So
I see. So it'd make a vSwitch, and
right.
all the VPNs would run on the vSwitch. I see.
Yeah, and then all your little VMs would be running in that vSwitch. That would be connected to pfSense, and then pfSense would be connected to whatever else. Since I don't have both network interfaces shown, it's only showing the one that's attached. But you could definitely do that. It's possible for sure.
But not recommended.
I wouldn't recommend it. It's based on how strongly you feel about it. I wouldn't want my entire network, for example, to go down if I rebooted my server, for example. Guys sit here and get real stuck in, let's virtualize all of the things, and then like virtualize FreeNAS, and then they have like their domain controller needs FreeNAS to boot up, but it's all on the same machine. So if you reboot it, nothing comes up because FreeNAS can't connect to the DM or the domain controller. The domain controller can't connect to FreeNAS, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect sense.
Yeah. So you want to be careful about how much of a house of cards you build with that.
Yeah, I'm not too interested in like virtualizing all the things, but I'm just trying to think of how I could best squeeze as much out of that second,
right,
IF board I have. But I think I'll do something,
Well, and that's why I was saying you could definitely install ESX and just have all of the VMs running on that, and then either put it, if you wanted to replace your router with a pfSense box, you could definitely do that. If you wanted to just use an edge router box, like I have set up, you could do that as well. I mean, I love my little, that's the wrong one. I love my setup with this just because it's no nonsense. I have one port I have the old one, the Edge Router Lite, so it's only 3 ports. But internet comes in one end, I have a local network that is right there, and then I have a secondary network if/when I decide to do a VM pass-through, it's going to be on its own network right there.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
And so that just in that case, you'd pass through that network interface and then put it on that second port on your router, and then you have 2 completely separated networks. You can either connect them if you want or not. And that's not even including VLAN or anything else. That's a just straight up routed network.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you can assign a network to each network port on that router.
Mm-hmm.
What is this? I'm writing it down.
This is a Ubiquiti.
Oh, Ubiquiti. Okay.
Yeah, the Edge router. But this is like the big one that everybody likes, tends to like over this one is the Edge Router X versus this is the Edge Router Lite. The Edge Router X is like a newer revision and includes hardware switching. This does not. So that's the big difference, is that if you plug in all the ports and expect it to act like a switch, you actually lose like 60% of your performance because it's doing it all in software. So it's better. That's why it's better to have one port for your network and then have a switch directly downstream from that, which you said you already have plenty of switches, so that's not an issue. Yeah. But that's how that setup is.
What are those, netcoms or something like that?
Yeah. Nothing new.
So I just have mine fed straight from the router straight into a switch and then straight out to everything else. But again, that's with this setup. This little guy can do gigabit without problem as long as you don't do that virtual switching on it.
Interesting.
But yeah.
That makes sense. Then I could use my existing router as an access point or a wireless access point.
Yep.
Shut off DHCP.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and ESX is a great tool. I mean, it's super powerful. Let me go ahead.
And it's free.
And it's free. Yeah, they changed the licensing on it so that it now is, I think it's only dual. You can have dual physical CPUs, but it doesn't care about cores anymore. It used to care about how many cores you had.
Ah.
I'm starting up that VM that I did for the VPN test for that video for you.
And that was way more convoluted than it should have been. Not on your part, but like, man, I don't know why we had so much I don't know why it worked the second time.
It was just sudo, wasn't it?
No. See, when I followed that guide to do that, sudo wouldn't do it. Sudo would still return that weird Python error.
I don't know.
It was just weird. It kept trying to find 2.7 directories or something.
Right.
And it needed, what, 3.5 or 3.6 to run.
Yeah. So
I don't know what I followed your video guide and it worked perfectly. So.
Yeah, not a problem. I mean, I figured it would be something similar to that, but anyhow, I was gonna say you can see in the background here, ESX has keeping track of all the different processors and everything there, so you can really keep track down and see what it is.
Okay.
See what's going on with it. A little bit deeper digging than some of these other things.
You can't assign individual cores, but you can still keep track of them.
You can assign. Let's see. Let's see if it's going to cooperate. I've had issues with this crashing. I think they either some kind of update they pushed to this hasn't been working real well. Close that. Probably shouldn't.
So if you don't use Unraid, how do you keep? What do you use for your array for your media storage?
Right now, I'm about to transition this box to a FreeNAS box, but I have a Drobo right now that is quite full. It starts whining at 85%, and I keep having to delete several hundred gigs at a time to keep it under 90. Error occurred. Try again. Anyhow, when you go to create a VM in this, it's just create, and then, what do you want to do? Are you doing it from a file that's already existing? Here. Ubuntu. Thank you, caps lock. So what kind of virtual machine? If you want it to be backwards compatible or compatible with VMware Workstation, for example, you would change that. Which family? You know, if it's one that it knows, it'll have the extensions already built into it. Where do you want it to live? So since I have all these hard drives attached to it, I'll just have it live on there. And then this is where, okay, how many CPUs do you want it to have? You know, do I want to allow it to use all 16 cores? Or do I want it to be a 6-core machine? And then how much RAM do you want to provide it? How much of a hard drive? That kind of thing.
Oh, okay. This is really straightforward.
It's extremely easy. So I'm going to make a 2-core pfSense box. 4096. And you just sit there. Let's add a CD drive. Do you want it to actually be a host device? Like if you had a CD drive attached to it, you could do that pass through again. Or do an ISO. Give it a second. I stupidly started all those other VMs while this is going, and since they're not SSDs, it's taking a second. Once it's all up and running, it won't be an issue, but booting 2 other VMs at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me come back to this. How are you guys doing?
That's why I put the VMs in the cache pool, but I definitely want to get a bigger cache pool. I only have a 256 gigabyte solid state.
And also with this, ESX is not running off of flash memory. Since I didn't have an extra flash drive, this is also running off of the hard drives. So that's the other thing. Everything should be good. Okay, that's all started up.
Does it give you a little screen window view of the virtual machine?
Yep.
No shit. I need to get this.
So it has a web version, like just open up a web window, like an extra window link with that you could do, but you can also install what's called the remote console, and that's actually a Windows application that'll kick over with that. I mean, once you get it set up, I sat there and just said, okay, I'm done using that. I'm just gonna sit here and do a remote desktop. There it is. Yeah. So I can do the same thing and just remote into that VM, because this is a VM now that I'm attaching to. And you can, with RDP, you can have it save your credentials and everything to just log you straight in. And as you can see.
Ah, okay. And since you're doing RDP, basically through the VM, it's safe. There's
Right.
no worry about it.
If you keep your VMs running instead of shutting the machine down like I did, you're not going to have any issues. I just had everything. This was in a completely cold configuration when the call started, so that's why it's getting started up. But yeah, see, now I'm on this Windows 2016 VM, ready to go.
Well, I know what I'm putting on that other server.
Just make sure you have 2 flash drives when you install it, so that you can install ESX to the flash drive, and you'll be fine. And then this will all be even more performant. Like I said, this was just a quick test and something I spun up for you to be able to get that VPN going.
I will grab another one of those little tiny SanDisk micros or whatever they are, and those super micro boards have a USB port right on the board.
Yeah, depending on which one you have, it could have more than one. Mine has, I think, 2 or 3. So you can have mirrored backups already on board.
Yeah. So the Unraid box has just a little flash drive, just.
Yep, exactly.
So there's no worry of it hanging off the back of the board and you popping it off on accident and breaking it. And
that's just for your VPN. You just
No. This is for Unraid. In the server in my room there, it's got just a little micro thumb drive plugged in here, and that's what it's running the OS off of.
Oh.
Yeah, off that little USB header there.
And so that's the nice thing too with that, is that you can save you can, pull that out, and when the server's turned off, obviously you don't want it to corrupt anything, but you could make an image of that and then mirror it to another flash disk, and then keep that one unplugged from everything, so that if the flash drive dies or server takes a shit or something like that, you can sit there and plug it in and just have it pick up all those same drives, that kind of thing, which is nice.
I have Unraid automatically back up onto the array, so every night at like 2 a.m. it backs up an image to the array.
Right, but the thing is it wouldn't have any of the GUI stuff saved, and the overall install is on your thumb drive. So what I'm saying is make a offline copy of that, so that you could just plug that in, boot from there, and it would just pick right back up where it left off.
I see. Okay.
And that's the same thing with ESX. That's what I didn't have with this setup, is that I didn't have an extra thumb drive handy to do that plug that in.
Yeah, I'll just buy like a handful of those little SanDisk micro cruisers and
exactly. Plug them
keep them in a little baggie labeled for whatever they are.
Exactly. Yeah, actually, since I have a ton of little camera memory cards, I actually keep backups on memory cards, so that if worst comes to worst, I can plug in a card reader and boot off of that with most of my configs. Because those usually go on sale periodically.
That's why I'm looking forward to Black Friday this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Getting a bunch of flash drives and solid states. And
yeah, that's coming up real soon.
Less than 60 days.
That's right. Start saving.
Actually, no. Thanksgiving's a month away.
Yeah, you can see. So even with all of the stuff I had going on, we were just waiting on I/O. I didn't even hit 40% CPU usage.
Oh, damn.
So that was completely I/O based. And if you had your FreeNAS or Unraid on a separate box that this was connected to, you would have 0 issues. It's pretty nice that way. So let's see. Disk. Yeah. That was the issue.
Nice.
And you can actually sit here and see all the different things. Oh, how did my memory do? As I started stuff up. So this really gives you a lot of information as you're going through it.
Okay.
but I'm a fan. Anyhow, but yeah, that's what. So this box, since I lost 9 of the 18 RAM slots on it, I'm not gonna bother making this a compute box for VMs and stuff. But I wanted to try it out just to make sure that it would all work.
Did you ever try shorting the CMOS out?
Oh yeah. No, I've done shorted the CMOS. I've pulled it from the box. I switched CPUs. I checked pins. I've reflashed BIOS. I did every single combination just about of RAM to slot. It's
And
literally
JDM
like the
on there.
it's the motherboard literally does not believe it has 18 RAM slots anymore. Just half the memory slots disappeared. They went off into the ether.
JDM won't RMA it for you?
He probably would. I'm just not gonna bother with it. I mean, he cut me a deal on it anyway, and he would have to
Yeah.
sit there and return it to whoever he bought it from, assuming it's still in the return period. So,
I'm going through that on the board I bought, actually. There was a fucking thermal paste down in the pins.
yeah, you said that.
I'm not. I was going to try and clean it out, but I got it cleaned off the coolers, and even the were just smothered with fucking thermal grease. I
Yeah.
knew as soon as I lifted that processor off, I'm like, there's going to be fucking down in the pins. Sure enough.
Yeah. No, he sent me this pretty much already set up. I just had to add coolers and plug it all in. So I'm not going to worry about that. And the thing is that when I booted it the first couple of times with the normal memory configuration, it read it just fine. So something happened while it was here in my possession with it. I just can't for the life of me figure it out. You know.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna sit there and make him go through the extra hassle and try and ship it all back.
No,
It still
no.
works just fine, and it still reads all of the memory just in a different setup. So it's gonna be fine for me for now, and I'll build another box and just keep this for a very powerful FreeNAS box.
Hell yeah.
I mean, if it's strong enough to virtualize all this other stuff, it's more than strong enough to be a storage box for me.
Absolutely.
So
Even light use VMs, I mean,
right, I can run all my Docker and stuff off of this without any issues whatsoever. Because I mean, yeah, data store 1, 10 terabytes right there. And so it'll drop down to, it's got 3 gigabytes and 1 2 gigabyte, just because that's what I had on hand to get it started initially. But I'll plug in FreeNAS with a 4x2 and just be able to replace that one drive and have it auto expand. And then once the ZFS pushes out that update, I'll be able to add the other drives to it one thing at a time.
what does FreeNAS look like? I've never actually messed with FreeNAS.
Do I have a FreeNAS ISO? pfSense. Let me see, how long would it take me to download FreeNAS?
Oh, don't worry about that. I didn't know if you had a FreeNAS box already set.
No, I don't. That's what this ESX is going to be replaced with shortly. I mean, I don't mind doing it. Give me 1 second here. Let me see. Oh, I actually downloaded this, didn't I? There it is. Yeah. Give me one. Let's try it out and see what we can do. Let's see. Data store.
Because if they were making it so you can add to the array, I mean, that might be worth looking at because, you know, Unraid's fucking $130.
Right. Depending on how many drives you go up to.
I'd probably just go with the unlimited just to have that freedom. And I mean, I like Unraid, and it's really like it's foolproof. It just works, but you know, you don't learn that way.
Right.
I mean, nothing says I'd even have to get rid of Unraid. I would just.
Well, what's his name? One of the guys in the forum actually does both. He has an Unraid box for one thing and a FreeNAS box for the other thing. So downloads. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I mean, I could always set up FreeNAS and do a DAS or something like that. I'd eventually like to do a DAS.
Yeah.
Just find me a good deal on Hitachi's.
Yeah, give me 1 second here and I'll try it out, and I'll even set up multiple drives, virtual drives for it, and we'll see what we can do.
Lucy, what you doing?
Shut down.
What you doing? You sleeping?
So,
Come here. Hi. You sleeping? While you're doing that, I'm going to see if I can get into this student pack. I know I've got it. Power up. Verify your email address.
So I'm just going to give it 3 1 terabyte drives. Let's do 4 cores. Add other device. All right, let's try it out and see what happens. Oh, you know what? Hang on. I'm going to stop this. Didn't mean to suspend it, but that's okay.
It's got you stuck in cache for some reason.
I'm going to create like a virtual thumb drive for it to install on so it doesn't install the wrong way. Let's see.
Stage.
VMware console not responding.
There it is. Got it. Hey, look, AWS. Bitnami. Nice code. Fuck GitHub. Look at that. What?
Wonder if that says something about the people running DigitalOcean.
I mean,
Just kidding.
I was gonna say that had to be random. Still,
Gotta screenshot that.
no, that's my access code.
Well,
I'm gonna screenshot that, Jeff.
sorry.
Let's get this DigitalOcean credit.
Nice.
Maybe I can get a droplet going real quick.
Yeah, if you do you use SSH keys?
Not yet, but I am gonna start setting that up.
So one of the things that you can do with that when you set up your droplet is actually put in your SSH key and then make that automatically so you don't have to password to go into anything. So
That'd be nice.
that's how my Git is set up, so that I don't have to do credentials every single time. It's pretty sweet.
That would be sweet.
Because then it's just one of those, oh, I'm going to git pull, and it already knows, since it's already set up for the repo, it already knows the username and just has my key. It's very, very quick. New hard disk.
It's like a 3-step verification.
No joke.
Why? Yeah.
Not cooperating with you, is it?
There it goes. Okay, maybe I don't want to put it. There we go.
So I have
Yes.
FreeNAS running the install now. Let's see. Let's install. Where should FreeNAS be installed?
So does the VPN hook into your router? Like a
Virtual.
server that you spun up?
Virtual machine. At least mine does.
Oh, okay.
Let's install it on the flash drive.
And there's the VMware that the
That's what I was saying.
Docker, and then whatever else.
That's what I was saying. If we want to do a VPN between you and I, we would just put like that Raspberry Pi you have. I think there's Pi VPN or something like that out there.
Yep, there
Oh,
is.
I just-
PyVPN is excellent.
I have a desktop in my car. I might just throw everything onto.
Oh yeah, the Corey top that we were going to give him.
Yeah, well, after 3 months, no longer for him.
Yeah.
I don't think he expects to get it anymore anyway. He hasn't thought of it. It's not on his mind.
Oh, check it out.
So wait, they give you like a little image just to download, and then you can just spin it up?
You can click what you want. It looks like they already have it set up.
Oh, it's awesome.
I could do a MongoDB droplet right now.
There you go.
Yeah,
In
and
the
so
meantime.
when you set that up, PryTunnel up initially, it asks for where the MongoDB instance is, and the way we set it up was with a local, just a single host. So if we wanted to do that, we would have to reconfigure PryTunnel, and it may or may not wipe what you have set up now, but it would be very, very quick to do because you've already got everything running. It's just changing where the database lives.
Interesting.
And here, let me, if you are gonna do that, let me give you this link so that you can make sure that you have MongoDB secure.
Oh, does this tell me how to set it up on the droplet so it's secure?
Well, this has the stuff for it. It's just the link to the tutorials, and that the MongoDB securing stuff is linked in there. It's actually because it just has a link that on how to secure MongoDB if you're going to use it for that purpose. Just a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
FreeNAS installation succeeded. Let's.
Actually, I have no idea what I'm looking at here. Let's describe site to site.
Let's reboot the system. Let's see what happens.
Oh, so we'd all have to connect to the MongoDB cluster I set up.
Right, that's what I'm saying. You're going to be changing that. Dang it, I did not.
Okay. So I'd have to.
Create like a username and password for each person.
No, we might have to get on a voice chat if we want to set this. I'm sitting here reading through this.
Yeah, there's a little bit of setup involved because each person will basically your MongoDB is going to be like the central. It's not the thing that links them, but it just links how they authorize to each other and how they talk to each other because it passes
see.
along all the back end stuff via the database rather than via a network link. So your normal traffic in that will just go straight site to site via those encrypted links. But the way those servers, the PryTunnel servers, talk to each other will be via via the MongoDB. That's why I say that's going to be something for that'll probably take an afternoon or something to set up in our different
Yeah,
locations.
I'm not going to set it up today. I'm looking through adds droplet to droplet networking.
Yeah, that's their own version of the site to site. They're basically doing the same kind of thing and using like a vSwitch or something to have all your droplets, if you have multiple droplets, be directly connected to each other. They're just making it that one step easier. I don't know what the security wise is of it, but they do allow that option. Bless you.
There you go. My dog's gonna check on me now. Okay, Lucy.
Shut down. See if I can get this going before I have to head out. So now FreeNAS should be installed. We'll see if it pops up. Are you just looking through the documentation over there?
Nope, I'm watching your screen now.
Oh, I gotcha.
But
network boot, operating system not found. Solid. Wonder if I have to change the boot order. Shut down. Let's shut down the guest. It's probably because I didn't set it up the way it thought. I put the flash drive as the very end. Edit settings. Because I don't know if it gives me a BIOS screen or anything like that. It just boots too fast, that's the problem.
Interesting. It's trying something.
Yeah. Boot options, there we go. EFFI. There we go. And I broke it.
Oh no.
Let's see. What do I need to do?
Yeah, I noticed when I set up VMs on RAID, VNC does not like anything. It's very easy to break it with VNC. I get it set up enough to where I can SSH in.
Well, yeah, this isn't VNC. This is its own VMware's own remote console software.
Probably works a lot better than VNC.
Right. Let's see.
Oh, laundry. Is that what you're doing?
Oh yeah, I should probably run and grab my laptop real quick.
Okay. Here, I gotta get my stuff out of the dryer. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
You think I want to play? Right.
It's fighting me a little bit.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Probably because it's not supposed. FreeNAS is not meant to be virtualized, but we'll get it sooner or later. Oh, 6 milliseconds. Pfft. No wonder that doesn't do anything. Alright, there we go. Just gonna have to reinstall.
So FreeNAS is WebGUI, like, as a web GUI, like Unraid, correct?
Yep, straight up web GUI. It's did you watch the JDM's video on how it all runs or no?
No, I should. I know I've seen
His live, because he did like a live stream with a complete build and everything a while back, and I was actually on that video, which is kind of funny because I was watching the chat. But it's pretty good. I mean, it's long, so you can just skip forward to have him. He does like flashing the BIOS. Or flashing the HBA card rather. He does all that kind of stuff. But it was a pretty good setup.
I'll have to watch that. It sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And like I said, FreeNAS is just has a different mindset on how it runs than Unraid. You know, it's designed to be a set it and forget it kind of thing.
Now, does it have Dockers like Unraid does?
It has jails, which are similar,
Okay.
and it also, I believe, has some form of virtualization. But that's if with the way you have things set up, if you have that extra box, you might as well create one and have it just be a storage box, and then have it export to a virtualization host, and then you don't have to have any drives in that host. It can just boot off the network, kind of thing, which is always a nice option. And Unraid and FreeNAS both allow you to do that.
It's an option. I was thinking I might mess with ESXi on that other one.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. ESXi will live on a thumb drive, and you could have all of your files live on your high-performance NAS. Or you can do both. There's lots of different ways to do it.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because with the dedicated storage box, the way Unraid or FreeNAS is, that with a little bit of performance tuning, you're not going to notice much difference. This seems to be going pretty well.
Did I get you interested in Discord, Jeff?
Yeah, I need to check it out. Sounds cool.
Yeah, we
See
got
if there's any good development channels.
Oh, you guarantee that there's development servers for literally probably anything to be a part of. Like,
Yeah.
these are all mine. This is gaming clan that this is for the like a packet, or not a packet, a DLL injection cheat menu for Grand Theft Auto Online. GTAA is a GTA 5 clan on Reddit. This is Delta. This is where I work, Delta. This is their gaming Discord, Plex, and then this is the one I was telling you about. It's like a Plex/server hardware.
Nice. Yeah, this has definitely got me interested in some infrastructure a little bit. VMware with some type of Docker.
Docker is just so powerful.
Yeah, and have you heard of Salt or Ansible or anything like that?
Yep.
There's a couple. What's that?
I've definitely. I'm working on getting Salt set up once I have an actual host running.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I heard that a lot of people use it for DevOps stuff, so I was kind of thinking like of going that route. But for now, if Portainer or anything else like that is much easier, I'll probably just keep it simple.
Well, Salt is kind of designed more. It's not. Docker and images and VMs are definitely different than they're different from each other. Salt is designed for a more like VM setup, post VM setup. So like how I'm setting up my FreeNAS, setting up Ubuntu, all of that kind of stuff, that would all be automated via Salt or Ansible or whatever tool you use for it. Whereas Docker is more like, I want to be able to run this application like PlexPy or Plex, for example. And I'm not worrying about any of the dependencies. It's got all of those dependencies built in without any of the overhead of virtualizing an entire operating system. Whereas Salt is like, I'm going to install this VM and I want it to be completely set up with packages and my logins and all of that kind of stuff after the fact without me having to do it all manually. So like PryTunnel, for example. Say you wanted to create a PryTunnel node at a remote location. You could automate that stuff with Salt. You'd have, or whatever your tool, I'm using Salt as the example, but you could automate some of that stuff so that, okay, I'm creating a remote location at, I don't know, buddy number 3, we'll say. I walk over to buddy number 3, install this box, and then have it spin up a VM and have it use that Salt script, and automatically will connect to your clustered MongoDB and automatically create those site-to-site links without any interaction.
Oh, okay.
So it's more of a configuration after the fact rather than having to do all of that manual input like I'm having, like what we're doing and what I was showing him. It's to get it to an already running state. And that in that way it's similar to Docker. Docker is just everything is containerized in one thing already running.
So with Docker, it's just more like you're running a single service, and then your VMs would just be like the entire machine that might have multiple services.
Correct. Yeah, just like how I have our Windows 20 Windows Server on there. It comes with a bunch of services that you can install and configure and do all of that. Salt or other tool of choice is designed to have all of those services set up and already in a known good state. So you could spin up 3 or 4 domain controllers at different locations and have them all automatically set to connect to your master domain controller kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense? So it's a different use case than Docker is.
Yeah, this is old. I forget, but I heard that you would want to use a VPN, or not a VPN, a virtual machine every time that data, and then Docker just runs stuff, and you wouldn't want to use that for any time that like persistence or anything like that is necessary for like saving data and database entries or whatever else.
Right.
Or am I mistaken?
You can do it both ways. Docker has the capability to map out its data, but it's designed to be ephemeral. If just like you saw me pulling up and down my Docker stack, the services that it provides, any of the data that I need is already exported out, but I can recover that memory or recover that disk space taken up by all those services with a single command. There's nothing that's going to be contained within those images that I'm going to need. I don't need the font that PlexPy uses to render its web UI. I don't need the background images that, Sonar has keeping its background. All that stuff doesn't matter. That's the stuff that gets wiped out each time. Whereas with a VM, you have a much more monolithic install. It's got everything from the kernel, the stuff interacting with the hardware on up.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of how on rate. It's basically.
So I think Docker is just a lot more, I want to run this application. Great. I'm not going to bother installing all the dependencies in that. I'm just going to have one container that has all of that stuff built in with it. Think of it like similar to like old cartridge gaming systems, like the Super Nintendo, where each of those cartridges could have like a special chip for the Star Fox vector graphics, that kind of stuff. It's all contained in one thing. You plug it in, you turn it on, and it's good to go. Versus something like a PC software where you have to tell it where you want it to install, and you have to have it set up to make sure it works with your hardware, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that all makes sense. I'm just trying to run it through my mind of how this, I don't know. I guess I came into this a little bit ignorant about how these things work in relation to development, which is what I want to use a lot of this infrastructure stuff for. So,
right.
I don't know. I have to look through and see what the use cases are for Salt, because I keep seeing like Salt and what are the Ansible and Puppet and all that stuff. I keep seeing that in reference to developer operations, but not exactly sure why.
So a lot of what's nice about it is that you could sit there and have, say you want to, you're building an app, right? And you want it to work on Intel, you want it to work on AMD, you want it to work on Android tablets, you want it to work on all that. Do you want to keep VMs running all the time, or do you want to be able to automatically spin up these virtual devices, test out your software, make sure it runs the tests, and then destroy that VM, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's the kind of stuff. So you can orchestrate those kinds of tests or builds or things like that without having to worry about the individually maintaining each of those things. It's an automated process.
I see. So you could run, it's like a way to run integration tests.
Exactly. That's one use case for it. That's just a good example, since you're bringing up DevOps type stuff. You don't want to have 200 different systems with 200 different configurations and maintain those physical pieces of hardware. when you could emulate all of those and run your tests on just one big server kind of thing. Or do it serially, have it, do 5 at a time each VM and have it spin up, spin down. So that's,
that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, just like how here, are you guys still watching?
Oh shit! There we go.
There, I'll start one up. So just like I can sit there and I showed you like my whole stack of all the different services running, right? Each one of those you could sit there and do Docker run this image, hello world is just an example, blah 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 blah, with all the ports, that kind of stuff, and do each individual command line, and it's going to run, it's going to work just fine. And if yes, actually, I'm going to take down my duck DNS container again just because that's an easy one. So Docker stop duck DNS would stop the image from it's no longer running. It just like turns off the machine, like power off. Docker rm duck DNS to remove the container image, the one that had the stored data running. Docker rmi duck DNS is to remove that. What was it? Linux server duck DNS. So now I don't have that read-only cartridge. I'd have to re-download that image file, create a container from it to be able to run that. Whereas with that DC run compose, it takes care of all of those steps for me in one step. That's similar to how it's an orchestration of all of those events at one time, rather than having to remember all of those different command lines. Stop, remove the container, remove the image, that kind of stuff. So DC run pull. So now it's going to say, hey, you have all of your images except duck DNS, because that's defined in my server stack, and it's going to automatically pull what I need for it. And now DC run up. All my other images are still good. All I had to do was create that one thing.
Nice.
And it does look like FreeNAS started up, by the way. So who wants to see what FreeNAS looks like? 10.11.12.70.
So a VPN question while we're
Sure.
say we were to get, you, Josh, Jeff here, and myself, and we had like 4 points on a site-to-site VPN. How simple would it be to point in external VPN providers like that one I linked you to earlier in Discord, and basically have our own almost Tor network, as it were?
It is possible. I have not set up something like that, but it would just be an upstream route thing from wherever we were.
Yeah, so it doesn't sound like it'd be too much of a big deal.
Right. It all depends on what you want to do. Do I have any Active Directory? No. So yeah, FreeNAS is set up, by the way. This is running if you're watching still.
Yeah, this is.
So share name, media. Let's allow guests. All that.
How much do you know about ODAP?
I haven't used it, so I don't know.
We were talking about ODAP earlier.
It's, as far as I know, it's very similar to what Windows offers, just not nearly as integrated with a lot of things. Like it has some of the services that provides, single sign-on and things like that, but it doesn't seem to always be as not as much feature parity, I guess.
We're just shooting the breeze about like single sign-on for the Linux servers instead of having to save passwords for every single server or make that stuff's all the same.
And I can always overcome that with SSH keys, but
yeah. So here we are. So I can start importing all my disks. Import that disk. What file system type? Volume manager. Yeah, so this is all set up for what disks do I want to do? RAID Z, 3 times 1 times 1. So you can see it's already set up. since I have 3 1 terabyte drives and I'm doing RAID Z1, 2 terabytes remaining there. Add volume. Oh.
So it does something different or similar to Unraid, where that of the largest disk in the array.
Right. Unraid, Unraid, you have to have your parity drive be the largest drive in the array, so that they can all expand up to that size, right? With
Yeah.
FreeNAS, all the drives have to be the same size, or any of them that are bigger lose that capability, because the parity is not on any single drive; it's spread across all the drives.
Ah, that's okay.
So
That's the difference.
yeah, I thought I had a Reddit.
Yeah, there's a 30-day trial on Unraid. You ought to
Yeah,
mess with it one day.
I'm actually, that's one of the things I'm gonna do with my box while it's still in virtualization mode. Let me see if I can find an image for the parity on it. Because there was a really good image that showed the difference between how the parity was done with it. I may just have to whip out my paint skills, as bad as they are. So, on FreeNAS, let's do boxes. So with the way Unraid works is that it calculates the parity for the other drives and all here. Why is this not? But it basically calculates all the parity and stores it on one drive. If any single drive fails, it can store that it'll restore that data from its parity drive, right?
Yeah.
With FreeNAS, you have the parity split across the drives, so that any single drive fails, like say this drive fails, you got parity here, you got parity here that will rebuild these two sectors. Whereas like if this drive fails, you've got parity here and parity here that'll restore these two sectors. Unraid, it's just the whole disk is taking up to fill in the other ones.
I see.
So that's why this one, even if this one's a give me a text tool, 1 terabyte there, 2 terabytes there, and as long as this is 2 terabytes, it has enough smarts to be able to restore both of those. With this, if this is a 3 terabyte, this is a 2 terabyte, this is a 2 terabyte, you can't store enough data to be able to fully recreate that drive with the way the parity's split up. That's the difference, as to the best of my ability to explain it. And so when you do right, when you do, this is a example of Z1, by the way. With Z2, it's just taking up a bigger fraction for each one. So FreeNAS Z2. Let's do my little boxes again. Nope. So with Z2, the parity would be double on each one. So if I lose any drive, I can restore the data on the other drives, and that's why you lose 2 drives worth. And I'm using air quotes there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect sense.
So it's just depending on how much parity you are allowed with that Z1 versus Z2, how much space you're going to lose.
Interesting.
But that's my knowledge of how the ZFS works.
So does Drobo do parity?
Drobo uses something similar. I mean, but they have a proprietary closed source version of it, because when you go into the settings for it, you can actually set dual disk redundancy and have it do 2 simultaneous drive failures. Because I mean, I can literally go in and pull out a drive to replace it, and it'll just sit there and take 20 hours or whatever to rebuild it, because there's basically 2 copies of all the data. It's just 1 copy on a drive and 1 copy on a different drive. But they literally have their own file system called DroboFS. So what was I gonna do with that? Configure network, configure static routes, shell, system update. Yeah. Anyhow, I was gonna say, it appears that all this stuff looks like it's working. View disks. And it does have VMs, it says. Do I know how it works? No. It's coming soon. Well, any questions for me?
No, you fantastic.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I would stick around, but I have to get ready and get started for work, so unfortunately.
Understandable.
Okie dokie.
But definitely play around with it. I mean, do what you can while you can. You got the boxes for it. I would say even if you don't sit there and decide anything for the other box, I would get it up and running, because you could sit there and set up stuff like a local area network site-to-site VPN to play with it if you wanted to try it out.
Yeah, could do that. That's a good idea.
So I'm gonna shut
The
down.
only thing is I gotta figure out what I'm doing with it, because it's got that thermal paste in the one CPU socket. So
Oh, that's right. You said that.
I'm hoping the seller will take it back. He already told me no, but I sent him another email saying, hey, I don't know if you know how easy it is for me to file a claim with PayPal and eBay, but don't forget I can do that.
Right.
And see how he responds.
Right. No, that's understandable. I mean, it kind of left you in a bad place.
Yeah, in the worst case scenario, I gotta go and get one of those little paintbrush, like medium bristle paintbrushes, and try and brush it out, and take a needle in there. And
I'm sure there's probably video online of somebody who's found a good way to do it. But
I've looked it up, and that's the best way to do it.
oh, really? Even that sounds a little bit risky.
Isopropyl alcohol, 91%. You just flush it, and then you take the brush and you just go with the grain of the pins, and then
Be very, very careful.
yeah, use a credit card to straighten out the pins if you bend any.
Yeah. But yeah, anyhow, if you guys want to get together and start goofing around with more of this VM type stuff, this is definitely the way to do it. And I mean, it's only going to help each other learn more about it. I have no problem with that.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I can keep my ESXi box around for a while if you want me to stick with it that way, or I can goof around with other things. But what I can do is just pass ports to it and then let you guys play around with it. If you wanna what I can do, since I have it already set up, I could spin up multiple Ubuntu VMs and have you guys just plug in. Each one of you gets your own VM and see what you can do with it. Same thing with Docker. You could run Docker on each of your hosts and be able to access each individual one. That kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's the nice thing, is that with a VPN you can have everything look like it's local to you.
Yeah. That's what sounds most appealing about the site-to-site VPN, our own little network, and mostly for the experience of it, and plus the idea of English.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, all of these bookmarks that I have on my side, all of them are just straight up IP and port for right now, until I get the Active Directory or something with DNS capability set up. But then these bookmarks sync, because this is Chrome, obviously, and then I can, whenever I'm connected to my home network, I can sit here and access all of my services without any issues.
Yeah, I just did the same thing with all my services.
Because then you don't have to worry about forwarding ports or anything else. It'll be, if you're on your home Wi-Fi, you're connected. If you're on away Wi-Fi, you're still connected, as long as you've got access to your VPN. As long as it can connect, you're good to go.
That's awesome.
So that's the whole idea, and that's why I said it's so much more secure. You don't have to worry about having crazy passwords for each one. Just set up your VPN, forward that port, and then everything else is secured behind your network.
And then DigitalOcean that's VPN provider or
No, that's not a VPN.
They're just a virtualization provider. So
okay.
they're just giving you a virtual private server, the VPS, and they call them droplets is their vernacular for it. So that just gives you a server on a public IP that you can access.
Okay, so it doesn't change and stuff.
Right. So
This is
like
that.
he's running Nginx over there to be a reverse proxy, right?
Hmm.
But that's the thing is that if your power goes out there or whatever else, it goes down. Then nothing will resolve from that. I have my reverse proxy running on a droplet because it's in a data center with redundant internet, redundant power. So even though that individual service might not be accessible, my proxy will still be there. It will still work for that kind of stuff. It'll still point me in the right direction, even if if that particular machine or service that it's pointing to is down. It'll still resolve. It'll still work for those types of things.
Oh, okay.
So
I'm not
that's just
following that. I'm not.
to me that's just an out of band solution. Just like you can use a CDN, a content distribution network to host it, or you can host it on your own machine. I get power outages here every day. It seems like I lose power or brown out at my house here because I live in the swamp.
Hmm.
So
Oh, nice.
that kind of stuff. Anyhow, I would love to stick around and talk, but I gotta get ready. We can do a part 2 of this anytime you guys want. But
Absolutely. I'd be interested in, getting a droplet on DigitalOcean and trying to set up some of the site-to-site stuff.
yeah, I would say just you can try goof around with it and just get used to doing everything via CLI. To start with, or at least starting there and then working your way up to something more and making sure it's secured and making sure you don't lock yourself out and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Okay. You got the credit for it. The other nice thing is that you can, unless they've changed their terms, you can shut down the droplet, like just turn off the VM, and they don't count that against you as far as money spent.
Ah, okay.
So they'll charge I think a little bit for the amount of storage it takes, but not any processor usage or transfer or anything will count against you while it's turned off. So like you can just turn off that droplet and it'll only cost you like $1 a month to keep it, which is good as well.
Interesting.
Yep.
Cool.
But yeah, play
All right,
around
well,
with it. I'll get back to you guys. I'm off the next 2 days after today, so I can goof around whenever. But I know you guys got regular work.
Oh yeah, tomorrow and Tuesday are both pretty much good for me as well. So
I'll install Discord onto my work computer.
cool.
All
You can
right.
also put it on your phone. All right. Well, thanks for everything. Throw this on YouTube sometime for Josh to check out. I'm sure he'd be interested in seeing everything.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see it. Hour 38. I will